What's going on, legends? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be diving into a mission guide for the mission from Tier 5 Legion known as Contractual Obligations. Now, I want to do a mission guide for this one specifically as it is one of the most challenging missions across all the factions. I think a lot of you guys will be struggling with it. And although I did cover it in my full mission guide, I wanted to actually add some more detail, a little bit more tips that I think will help you guys along the way. So hopefully you guys enjoy. But before we dive into it, if you guys do enjoy this content anytime or find this video helpful in any way, make sure you guys show your support for the channel by going down below and smashing that like button. To go ahead and throw an easy goal of 100 likes on today's video, as well as if you guys like to find your way back to the channel for more Call of Duty content, make sure you do hit that subscribe button alongside notification bells so we don't miss you in future videos. Now for this mission specifically, it is asking you to complete 8 unique contracts in a single deployment. Now this will be a lot more difficult than it seems. Now I think the real big challenge here is being under a time limit, as the matches are 25 minutes and then the radiation expands after that, and you are given a variable amount of time to get to the final exfil. So you're going to want to be doing a majority of this in that initial 25 minutes, and it is going to be a very tight squeeze. Now, I definitely recommend doing this in a squad. I'm not actually sure how reasonable this will be to do in a solo or even in a duo, as again, you're going to have to move through these 8 different contracts pretty quickly. Now, there are 9 total contracts that you can choose from. 2 of them are kind of the same, being a deliver cargo, but I definitely recommend choosing the land one over the sea one. So there really is only 8 options that you can have. And then obviously throughout the match, there's possibilities that other teams will take your contracts, and you might even be left with a situation where you won't be able to fulfill a certain contract because there won't be any left on the map. Now, I actually did break this down in a spreadsheet so I could see how long it took me to do each of the contracts, and I had a pretty close to perfect run. Now, on average, each of the contracts took me around 2 minutes and 13 seconds. Now, not all of them took the same amount of time. The HVT took me less than a minute, and if you guys are looking at the raid weapon stash, it's going to probably take you the longest, as opening the stash itself is like a 2-minute countdown. So there's really no way you can speed things up except for getting to the contracts in a speedy amount of time and then also completing them as fast as you can in order to actually fulfill them all within that time frame. Now, if you take into account that 2-minute average over the course of 8, it'll be around 16 minutes, which only leaves you 9 extra minutes. And that's actually not even including the travel time to each of the contracts, because you might get lucky. A lot of the contracts could be really close by and you could shave off a lot of time that way, but there are going to be some where you actually have to go quite a distance to get there. Now, in order to complete this, I definitely recommend completing the Hunt Squad contract first, as this could potentially take the longest of all of the contracts out there, as you really don't have any control of where the enemy players will be or what they'll choose to do. They could try to avoid you, go to the other side of the map. They could already be on the other side of the map, which would lead to a ton of wasted time. So if you aren't able to complete the Hunt Squad contract and within a 3, 4, or 5 minute time frame, I definitely recommend restarting and doing a different run to actually complete this, because you're not going to want to go through 6 or 7 of the contracts to find out you're out of time and you're just not going to make it. Set yourself up for success by completing that Hunt Squad contract first. I guarantee the rest of these will come a lot smoother. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind is how long each of the contracts actually take. But I think once you complete the Hunt Squad contract, it's pretty reasonable to go to the contracts that are closest to you, as you will obviously have less time in between picking up your next contract. It's important to keep in mind that the Destroy Supplies contract and the Raid Weapon Stash contract do have time frames that you can't really shorten due to the bombs actually having to explode, and then with the Raid Weapon Stash, the time frame it takes for the stash to actually open. So those are 2 contracts you're going to want to get out of the way as soon as possible. In my situation, I waited till almost the end to do the raid weapon stash, and I was kind of feeling regretful because I didn't remember how long it actually took to open that stash. So if you have access to a Destroy Supplies contract or a raid weapon stash in your nearby vicinity while you're kind of working through the other ones after completing that Hunt Squad, I definitely recommend getting those out of the way sooner, as a lot of the other ones will take significantly less time. With things like the HVT taking less than a minute, the Deliver Cargo took me around 2 minutes. The Nuclear Materials took me less than 2 minutes. The Rescue Hostage took me less than 2 minutes. Most of those will be pretty quick and straightforward, but obviously you don't want to waste a bunch of time traveling to those if they're actually really far away. So you're going to want to go to whatever contracts are closest to you, but keep in mind the ones that will take the longest are definitely worth getting out of the way sooner. I think the real RNG factor here will be where the locations of the contracts are and whether or not other people will take some of the ones that are closest to you, leaving you to have to travel even further to get to those other contracts. Completing these contracts quickly is not only important, but getting to the contracts quickly is definitely also important. You're not going to want to waste a lot of time at the beginning of the match looting up and grabbing all this extra stuff, because that's just going to burn the time that you will need to complete these contracts. Finding yourself a solid vehicle, if you guys happen to be close to the helicopter, that could be worthy to grab as well, but it isn't worth going across the map to get. And then you can go from contract to contract pretty quickly. But again, even the time in between the contracts for me was around an average of 1 minute and 30 seconds. And I was still pushing the time limit to getting this completed before the match ended. So between the 2-minute average of me actually picking up the contracts and completing them to the time in between them being around 1.5 minutes, it was probably almost 4 minutes average doing each individual contract. And then if you obviously multiply that by 8, that would be 32 minutes. Now, 25 minutes is the initial time that you have before the radiation starts expanding. And then once it expands, you have anywhere between, I think, 7 and like maybe 12 minutes to actually get to that final exfil and get out of the map. And while that radiation is expanding, it could actually mess with the path that you're trying to take and could even consume some of the contracts you're trying to take. So that is also going to play into the factor. You need to complete at least 7 of these before the radiation starts expanding, or at least be very, very close to getting that final one as the radiation starts expanding. I definitely recommend leaving the rescue hostage as the final one if you guys can, as it is basically a free exfil and you won't have to go anywhere else to, of course, get another contract or even exfil. You can just leave the map, because obviously at that point, you're already able to exfil, leave the map, and you've completed all 8 of the contracts. I think that's a pretty good way to go out. Again, you're going to be pushing it with time. If you find yourself 5 minutes into the match and you haven't even grabbed your first contract, it's likely worth trying to do it in your next run. Hopefully these tips and tricks will make these things a little bit smoother. Again, getting that hunt squad contract done first is the most important, because I think that one could take the most time and obviously leave you significantly less time to complete the others. But being that you will have probably an average of 2 minutes to complete a contract once you grab it, and a little bit of time in between to get to the other ones, you're gonna have to move pretty quickly in order to do this in that time frame. Took me about 30 minutes total to complete all of them, and I barely had any time left over to get to that final exfil. Luckily, I saved that rescue hostage for last, and we were exfilling with the hostage itself, pretty much eliminating the fear of not making it out. It wasn't really a big deal, because once we got that final contract completed, we were done with this mission and able to move on. But that's going to wrap things up for us here. Hopefully these tips and tricks will help you guys on your journey. Definitely recommend getting together with the squad. If you guys want to pull in more people, you could even help you guys complete these contracts a little bit faster. Thank you guys for all the support in today's video, all the support on the channel, and I look forward to seeing y'all in the next one. Peace.